All right, we are live. Hey, everyone that's tuning in either live or watching this later recorded. My name is Miriam Dorsett, and I'm really excited to be here today, chatting with you, bringing you some knowledge from my guest, James Glasscock, the CEO and co-founder of GoodHuman, a really innovative new app that we connected on LinkedIn about. And he agreed to come and chat with me live on the internet about what he's doing. So welcome, James.
Yay. Hey, Miriam. So nice to be on your show. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. I'm sure you're supremely busy with all that you're doing with your launch, the beta launch of your app. I'd love to just start off getting to know you a little bit. For those of you that are watching, this is literally the first time that I've met James. I've only exchanged messages with him before, so you're kind of getting to know him as I am. So I guess my first question is kind of like, I've read over your bio and scrolled through your LinkedIn as we were talking about. You were in Tennessee, growing up there, and so I definitely want to know about your favorite whiskeys or bourbons, like scotches. Tell me about that. But then you went into the Navy, followed by just a series of working at brands that have really big names. And then now here we are, fast forward to today, where you're launching this company called GoodHuman, which is, just by the name alone, I think aligned with a lot of my personal passions. So what kind of brought you here? Like, who are you? How do you describe yourself?
Yeah. I'll kind of home in on like where I'm at now and then do the rewind into the history. But one of the things I've been really thinking a lot about over the last 10 years is how to combine my work life with my life. Which is an interesting, and I've seen people do it. I'd seen them more or less living an integrated life, and I thought, ooh, I want that. Sometimes we have jobs, where we drive hours to get there, hours to get back, and they don't fully align with our passions, but we take them because maybe they pay well or something like that. And that's amazing. If you have that privilege and fortune to be able to do that, that's a great thing. But there's even beyond that, is when we can align our actions with our values. And I don't know how it is for everyone. Maybe some people are born awake, some people wake up in their 20s, some wake up in their 30s, some wake up in their 40s, or whatever. Everybody's different. But it's something that I've spent a lot of time thinking about over the last decade. And when the opportunity to create and build GoodHuman came around, it really brought that to kind of full fruition for me. My business partner and co-founder, we homed in on two really big concepts that we knew we wanted to build GoodHuman around. The first one was integrity, which, this idea of aligning actions with values and living your word. That was really important to us, just professionally, from experiences of working at other companies, and the kind of culture we wanted to create, and really the kind of community we wanted to create around GoodHuman. And then the second observation was being a good human is really inconvenient these days. We're all working, hustling. Some of us have families. We all, hopefully have jobs. Some don't. We have our health to take care of. We have our finances we have a lot of things to take care of in this life. And we're all good humans. But we get caught up in a lot of the details, a lot of the distractions. And when it comes time to make a choice on something that's convenient and can show up at your front door in 2 hours, or something that might have a lower carbon footprint and you'll have to wait a few days for that, a lot of times we'll just kind of go convenience, because we're human after all. But what my partner and I spent a lot of time thinking about is, well, you know, how could we make being a good human as easy as being a bad human? Which is kind of like a funny thing to say, but that just really got us thinking a lot around what would it take for us to help more people align their actions with their values. Because when you do that, you can feel it. It's really hard to articulate what that is. It's hard to put a price tag on it. But when you've done it, and you know when you've done it, whether it's a little special purchase that you've made, or perhaps you've been being of service to others and doing some charity type of work or volunteer work, you know that feeling in your body and your heart when you are aligning your actions with your values. It feels pretty incredible. So, what we're doing with Good Human is we're building a place, a community that will make being a good human easier. And it starts with discovering products and brands that we've vetted, hundreds of brands, tens of thousands of products. It includes video content, news articles. We're trying to just put it all under one place. That's kind of where we are right now. But, kind of what led to this, as you mentioned, I was born in Tennessee. And, I honestly barely got out of high school. I was just not what you'd call a top performer at all. And for whatever reasons, this is my opinion, I didn't have the right influences at the time, but I decided to join the U.S. Navy and just basically get a fresh start. And it was a complete turnaround. I went from barely getting out of high school to being number 2 in my class, training in electrical engineering. And then went on to be kind of promoted a lot and all that stuff, won a lot of awards while I was in the Navy. So it was really a wake-up call for me about how important your surroundings are to your success. And I was lucky that I'd made that choice and I'd put myself in a different set of surroundings, and suddenly, my life turned around pretty quickly. Should I pause there? Or would you like me to keep going?
I have some follow-up questions in there for sure. And I'm agreeing with so much that you're saying. It's definitely a great feeling. It's like a high when you're aligned with your purpose and you're living as your true self, which is a good human. I agree with you. We're all good humans for sure. Yeah. Once you get a taste of that, you're like, oh, more, right? So I love that you're focusing in on building a community for this. What exactly drove you to start with the consumer products?
Yeah. By the way, I see your scroll. It says download the beta app. It's no longer in beta. So it's live in the Apple App Store, which you can find that link at our website, getgoodhuman.com.
Nice.
What got us to start with products is this. We looked a lot at certifications, and what we found, and we talked to a lot of consumers, and we found that a lot of people were overwhelmed. They don't know who to trust. And that was the same experience that my business partner and I were going through at the same time. It's just overwhelming. And when that happens, that's when we all just like, I'll take what I've always done, or I'll buy it off Amazon. But with products, the average American makes about 40 purchases a month, cash purchases, cash or credit card. And we see that as every purchase is a choice to protect or poison the planet. So we thought that'd be an interesting place to start, because what you've seen with a lot of innovations in history, whether we're talking about electric cars or cell phones, they start out very expensive. It's a lot of the technologies invented, like in the space program, like solar technology and the amazing camera phone that's in everyone's pocket. Even in countries around the world and villages, that technology started out being used in space exploration programs, as did many other technologies. And it was incredibly expensive, 30, 40 years ago, even maybe 25 years ago. But over time, consumer adoption drives the price down and makes it accessible to everyone. And that's something that we're really passionate about, is how do you make this lifestyle, these opportunities accessible to anybody, no matter how much money you have, no matter skin color, surroundings, anything. Because one of the challenges with sustainable products from ethical brands, a lot of times they do actually cost more money. And so we kind of see this from a couple of different angles. One is, with greater adoption, the pricing comes down. Like, for example, our expectation is nearly every brand and product you'll buy in 10 years will be sustainable and ethical. Not necessarily because those companies are trying to save the planet, but because consumers care enough, and the companies are going to go where the money is. And that's what consumers are doing. Now, that being said, those products are expensive. A lot of them today, it's the difference between a $90 pair of shoes or a $50 pair of shoes, or a $50 pair of shoes and a $15 pair of shoes. But when we built GoodHuman, we thought, well, let's not just make this a place to buy things. Let's build a community where people can have conversations like this and discuss it, and also get tips for DIY, and get tips for, how can I take the 10 things in my closet and wear them 100 days in a row, which is kind of fun. It's honestly, it's social currency now. This is like the really fascinating backdrop. One of the big seismic shifts that are happening right now with social media and social currency, and I know a lot of us are disheartened by what we see in a lot of the big social media, but there's a big shift happening right now from conspicuous consumption, which is the old currency, to which is essentially materialism in a lot of different ways, to a new currency, which is purpose, demonstration of purpose, and participating in experiences that sort of fill our cup. So, that's what we're building with GoodHuman, is a lot of community tools. Yes, if you want to buy products and you want to discover brands that we've vetted, we've got that for you. But if you want to connect with other people that are on the same mission as you, and learn from them, we've got that too. And we've been, spending this whole year really testing with beta testers and people who really care about this movement. We just launched, as you mentioned, about a week ago on Product Hunt, and now available in the Apple App Store. So we're opening it up so that others can get involved and have their voice heard.
Super visionary type of stuff you're talking about here, especially as I'm thinking about what's happening in Asia and the social credit app or thing that they've implemented. It's kind of, they're taking it to a level there with, it's like, okay, so you're buying stuff, or where are you buying it from? Are you buying consciously? And shaming people that are not, or whatnot, I see as a potential thing that could happen. But I love this approach where you're giving an opportunity for people to feel good about what they're doing. And I am honest, I shop on Amazon. I'm not perfect. I'm not waste free 100%. I do my best.
So do I. We're human.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and I know that do you think, because I think about Amazon a lot and what Jeff is doing over there and leading, do you think that eventually Amazon, Jeff, will kind of, do you think he's waiting for like a tipping point where he's gathered so much of market share and control that then he just goes and turns like the switch and does something really radical and crazy?
I don't think that's how it'll play out. I think, one of the things I've been a student of over the last 25 years is capitalism and companies and how they get built and what are the incentives. And incentives drive everything. They often, you've heard this before, don't hate the player, hate the game. And there's a big game going on with the wrong incentives. And those incentives over the last century or more have been around, exploiting resources from the planet and from each other, quite frankly, getting, paying you 10 cents so I can sell it for $1. So I have great admiration for Jeff as an entrepreneur and what he's built, an incredible company, incredible vision. They are making some efforts, but when your incentives are designed around shareholder value for a few shareholders, it's very challenging to change that and suddenly become ethical and sustainable. Now, the good news is consumers are going to drive the shift. So really what the largest companies will do is they'll follow the consumer. Now, the question is, who's going to serve that consumer? Is that consumer, it's just think about our favorite brands today and our favorite brands 20 years ago. How many of your favorite brands today even existed 20 years ago? Usually when there's a major shift in taste or values or expectations, a lot of times we don't trust the old, if you see an oil company, I think this week on Twitter, there's one of the oil companies was suddenly getting woke, and people are like, sorry, take a hike. We're not with you. And so, I'd say for a very large company like that, it's hard for them to kind of turn around. And where we're focused this is all we're focused on, and we see some opportunities for different types of business models where the community can play a bigger role in the ownership and governance of the company. You'll see a lot more of that over the next decade or two, and that's something we're really heavily researching and trying to figure out ourselves.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I've just downloaded the app myself, and because I was reading your terms and service and privacy policy, which, by the way, love those. Those are written very nicely and not in legalese.
Yeah.
Much appreciated that. I want to talk a little bit about that product hunt launch. So if you could kind of take us back to when you guys started building, because I know everything for entrepreneur is a journey, right? So when did you guys start building and deciding, okay, we're going to do this is what we're going to do? And then how did you prepare for your product hunt launch? How do you feel it went? And any tips for future people that are going to be launching on Product Hunt?
Sure. So we've been building for about a year now. We had to raise a little bit of money last year and start to turn a slide deck into a working beta, and now something that's launched in the App Store. Over that same period of time, we've been kind of figuring out our marketing priorities. How are we going to reach an audience that cares about what we're doing? Sorry for the movement there. And there's several different sort of audience segments that could care about what we're doing. What you'll see inside the GoodHuman app is a lot of products around clean beauty and sustainable fashion, primarily targeted at millennial women and Gen Z women and Gen X women. But, when you're starting a business like this, you really have to figure out the starting place of relevance. When Amazon started, they were just a bookstore, and then they added, the universe after that. So that's where we started and are continuing to focus, because we really want to super serve that customer. It just happens to be that women are really the most proactive thinkers on a lot of these topics and issues that we're covering right now. So, it's been a fun adventure for me to connect to my inner feminine side so that we can serve that customer. And what we ended up doing is, the company we built it's more than 50% women to help us kind of stay accountable in that way. The user base is over 80% female, maybe 90% at this point. I'm not sure. And that'll diversify over time. So, with Product Hunt specifically, that it's an interesting community, and I'm not an expert on it, but what I see is a lot of folks who are interested in building products and design and user experience. I don't have the data, but I'm pretty sure it's probably not 80 or 90% female. It's probably the other way around. So you might say, well, why did you guys even do Product Hunt? But, you know, I've really admired what Ryan has done building the Product Hunt community. You know, and I know he just actually turned over the leadership maybe about a week ago, which in a really heartfelt post, I could tell he himself was kind of coming to recognize, hey, where's my heart really want to go next? So I thought that was amazing. But with Product Hunt, you know, there's a lot of resources online. There's one video in particular on YouTube. It's about an hour long. It does a phenomenal job of breaking down every aspect of launching on Product Hunt. I can dig it up and send it to you afterwards. And as you know, there are many blog posts and there's lots of folklore and urban myths and things like that. What I think I learned, you know, we had an incredible hunter named Chris Messina, who liked our mission. He liked what we were doing, and we were really grateful to have him. I think one of the two really interesting things I would do differently in my Product Hunt launch. One is your momentum. So first of all, you should launch at 12:01 a.m. on that day. Don't wait till 6 a.m. or 3 a.m. Launch immediately, 12:01 a.m. And those first 2 hours, I haven't looked at all the data, but it looks pretty compelling. Whatever traction you get in those first 2 hours, that will decide the rest of the day for you. So if you're going to have your community, your friends, family, go and review the product, leave a comment, leave a review, upvote, have them do it early. Get that momentum going. I don't know much about the Product Hunt algorithm, but I'm sure it looks at indicators like that. And so that really means build your pre-launch list, email list, or database, or whatever that is. Build that soon. It could be your Instagram followers. It could be an email sign-up form on your website. It could be you just happen to know 5,000 amazing people who already have Product Hunt accounts, which leads to the second point. It would probably be more valuable for you to have people reviewing and upvoting that are already Product Hunt users, that already know the platform and the community. Will be, anyone who's new, who's been on the platform for less than a week, they'll have a shiny red balloon next to their profile. So you can go to the GoodHuman Product Hunt launch page and you'll see all of our red balloons. So, you know, I probably would have liked to have done a little bit more research with our community to figure out who was already a Product Hunt user. But there's a lot of tools you can use to research who's already active on Product Hunt, who already cares about what you care about. You know, so we did that. We researched who cared about sustainability, who's launched products like this, who's upvoted products like this, and build a relationship with them, you know, soon, you know, if you can, maybe months in advance, if possible. If you wait to do it 2 or 3 days before your Product Hunt launch, you know, you'll probably only get about 20 or 30% of them to respond because they're busy too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Actually, we learned that lesson last year in our community. We had a paddleboard rental do a launch, and it was epic. Like, we were 12:01, hit the email list, everybody get on, and upvotes. But every single one of them almost was a new user. The community did show up here locally that loved the product, but because they were not actually active members of the Product Hunt community, it didn't help us really in any way. So that was a lesson that I learned. And yeah, it's super key. I think that must be how you found me, because I am always like with the sustainable products, I'm like, yes, go. We need this stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'll add one more thing to it too. I think one of the most important things that you can ask people to do is not upvoting. It's getting them to really kind of challenge you in the review, the comments. You know, it's amazing when people say, "Oh, your product's amazing," but that's really what we're not there for that, unless you just want, you know, self-reassurance. What we really want is people to challenge us. We had a few people do that, and then that makes it fun. So you want to, even the closest people, don't just have them go cheerlead, have them go and start a discourse. And that's what makes it really interesting. And I probably would, if we were doing it again, I would have invested more in that.
Yeah, I resonate with that as an entrepreneur. People cheerlead me all the time. They're like, good job. No, I love it. And I'm like, I don't care if you love it. I want to know what you hate about it. Like, tell me that my baby is ugly.
Yes.
Because that's the only way that we'll grow and really
that's right.
Get better. So I've downloaded it and I'm going to check it out, and I will give you feedback, honest and critical.
Amazing. Yeah, there's actually you can go to the back of your app into the profile settings and submit feedback right there. When that happens, it goes to our entire team, and we act on it pretty quickly. Try to really address the user's needs, and some things we can move really fast on. Some things take a little bit more time.
Yeah, that is wonderful, because one of the things that I have always wondered about platforms is, why don't they bake that user experience feedback loop right in? It's not like people that are designing these things don't know how important it is. It's almost as if they don't want people to be encouraged to tell them, once they get you on there, they just want to kind of control you or whatever, instead of really design a product that works for you. And in some ways, it's good, because that's what drives people to innovate and say, well, we're not going to hang out on Facebook anymore. We're going to have our own social community app because it's not serving our purpose anymore, or whatever, or on some other, build something else. But it is also frustrating because it's a waste of a lot of energy and time. If these platforms would just build themselves correctly and operate right,
yeah,
we could all just chill back and relax and enjoy life. We don't have to fight the good fight all the time.
Yeah, well, sadly, the incentives that drive platforms like Facebook and Twitter. I think you might have someone knocking.
Oh, I'm getting a delivery. Thank you so much.
The incentives that drive a lot of these platforms, they reward negativity a lot, and so you just end up in a rabbit hole, a conspiracy theory thing, or just a lot of negativity. What we did with GoodHuman is we talk a lot about it internally, and we're trying to always improve it, but we built a feed for good. So, even when we're talking about sustainability and the climate crisis, it's a pretty conscious decision for us on how much we allow the doom and gloom in, because there's enough of it already. We've all seen it. What we really want to focus on are the entrepreneurs and the activists and the curious newcomers who are taking some kind of action, whatever that is. And that might be a brand that has come up with a new material to make a product out of, or maybe they're just using dead stock to make everything out of. Or it may be, a climate activist that's organizing something to include others in. We think that's, the world definitely needs more positivity, and we're trying to just really elevate that and give people a place to come for hope. There's enough negativity in the world, so if you or any of your viewers have suggestions on how we can improve that, well, we definitely want that feedback.
For sure. I agree with you. In my writing, I try to do that. The first draft is always a rant, and then I iterate, because I'm like, dude, if I put this out, people are going to be really pissed off after they read it.
That's right.
So I don't want that. I want to talk a little bit about the action piece. So you've created an app, you've made it simpler for people to take action, at least with their buying power, to be a good human and think about sustainability. But do you have any other actions that you take yourself maybe that you can suggest for people to take on and start doing, implement to live a more sustainable life?
Yeah. There's a few parts of that. One is even within the app, so we've started a founding members program. And the role of the founding members are to, number one, have a voice at the table to help us design better in the future. And number two, uh, next year, we're going to start to look for specific causes to really organize around. One or two big things a year where we organize the Good Human community to play a role in that. I was really impressed with the Pay Up campaign this year. Had several groups involved in that to have these retailers that were, a lot of them here in the United States, they decided to just cancel their orders on the manufacturers in India and other places around the world, even though they had already made the products for them. So the Pay Up campaign, I felt, was really impressive and pretty effective. Nothing's perfect. There's always a way for a brand to come out and say, "Oh yeah, we'll address it," and then they don't actually follow through. But a lot of people came together as a collective. And what's exciting about that, and this gets into the ethical consumerism, which I'm noticing an uptick of people who were previously ethical consumers recently deciding that's not the path and that only systemic change is the path. And I think what's missing from that conversation is it's not one or the other. It's both. Nearly every activist, every person I've seen involved in systemic change started somewhere, and it sounds funny. They might have started with plastic straws. Reducing plastic straws isn't going to save the planet, but behaviors like that and combinations of things like that are what leads us down the path to, today I'm doing straws. In 3 years, I'm protesting with Greta, and we're doing a sit out of school or whatever. So I think it's a really, really important point for people not to forget that collectives are made up of individuals. And if you're an individual and you're wondering if you're having an impact, there's, number one, you can look forward to being a part of the collective, which is amazing. And number two, the real reason to do, I think, a lot of these behaviors is because of how it makes us feel. It makes us feel good to do, to help someone. It makes us feel good to support a company that pays their workers. It makes us feel good to support a company that actually cares a lot about the people that work in the company, diversity around gender and race and issues. So, for me, the number one reason is to feel good. And the number two reason is this is the path to participate in the collective. And that's what GoodHuman really helps with. Specifically, behaviors for me around this. I mean, a lot of my bandwidth is going into trying to build this community and find other voices who care a lot about this and even know more about it than I do. Some people have been on this journey for decades already. We want them to be a part of the GoodHuman community because we see them as leading voices. So we're going to also, similar to your show here, in about a month, we're going to start up the GoodHuman digital series, which will be essentially these fireside chats with a lot of these voices and kind of rotating members of our community in and out of that. I think that's really important. And then, there's a little passion piece that I've been working on, thinking about recently, which will become a blog post in the near future, which is sustainability is an inside job. A lot of the conversations that are happening around, the UN and investors and companies and activists, a lot of those conversations are around the solutions. But the solutions, the physical solutions to our crisis are a manifestation of our values. They represent who we are. The kinds of use of products that we've been using over many decades, fossil fuels and companies that may not have taken good care of their workers, that is representative of who we are as consumers. And there'll be plenty of people who disagree with it, but it really, that's my opinion. I believe in that. And so when I talk about sustainability being an inside job, we really have to think about how are we really grounding and connecting ourselves to this planet. How are we taking care of ourselves every day? Self-care, whether it's meditation or writing, or you have some other special routine to take care of yourself. What is it they say on an airline before you put your oxygen mask on before you do someone else's? I really think that's super important. And you're going to see more content and storytelling around this, and hopefully some leading voices who have really given some thought to this, because the solutions to our crisis, we already have all these physical solutions. What we need is the willpower as a collective. And that's the part that's been, kind of absent. It's growing for sure, and it's going to accelerate. But that's why I think, kind of that focus on who we are as individuals and how we connect to this planet and each other is the starting place. So if you're not using plastic straws, you are on the mission. And, if you want to create a new fashion brand that's making everything out of dead stock material and giving back to your community, awesome. That's, somewhere on the path, and you can kind of keep going from there. There's a lot of different roles for people to, to contribute.
Mm-hmm. I love the idea of these leading voices. I think it's super aligned with your target market, and a good use of people's influence in the digital age these days. I feel like you've got a really great plan, and I'm excited to see entrepreneurs more experienced than myself getting out there and doing the work, and 100% every day, getting down on that mat, eating healthy food, taking 5 minutes for yourself, whatever it is, to stay present and grounded, especially as an entrepreneur. And I would love to talk to you a little bit about that, because being an entrepreneur is really challenging, and it's glamorized a lot of the time. But what type of startups, or before we go to that question, I do have a question about maybe expanding a little bit more on these leading voices, and what brands and people do you currently admire, and what do you admire them for?
It's interesting, since we've curated now over 680 brands. I don't know if I can say which one's my favorite, but maybe just to mention a few. They're all different, and they're all at different levels on the journey. Like the definition of good. What's good to you might be different than what's good to me. Some people care about ocean health. Some people care about treatment of the workers. Some people are vegans. Some people want to ensure that we are not polluting our waterways. It's impossible for any company to be perfect at all those things. And that's one of the reasons why we didn't call the company Perfect Human. It's just called GoodHuman. And, we wanted to kind of allow an experience where you could choose your own journey based on what's important to you. If you want to support brands that are BIPOC owned or managed, you can do that. If you want to support brands who really have a focus around sustainable packaging or an approach to zero waste, you can do that too. So, some of the companies I can mention are like Veja, which is a shoe company. They're doing corn upcycling as a new leather alternative. So they make it from cotton textiles. They cover it with a corn-based, and it's vegan and biodegradable, but has kind of that same leather smoothness. And that checks a lot of interesting boxes. Veja shoes, they have an incredible sustainability page on their website. Go check it out. And then you have brands like Mad Hippie that's partnered with TerraCycle. TerraCycle is this really interesting company that the founder would call themselves the Google of garbage. And they have partnered with companies like Unilever and I believe Nestle, and even small brands, some of the small brands that are inside of GoodHuman for recycling programs. And when I say recycling, reuse, I mean, they are getting the used product and they are actually fully utilizing it in some new product. It's not the recycling that we all heard of the last 20 or 30 years where it's actually not being recycled. So there's a company called Mad Hippie. It's a clean beauty company. And TerraCycle helps them with like a mail-in, a free, easy mail-in option to give the plastic packaging new life. That's a few of them. But one of the things that's really interesting about all the brands inside of GoodHuman, we call them ethical natives. What does that mean? It means they're not companies that are just bolting on some greenwashing to sell products. And there's a lot of them that do that. A lot of very big companies that are some that are really working on solving this and some that are greenwashing. No need for us to critique that here, but what I can tell you is the brands that we've vetted inside of GoodHuman, they're all founded by folks who are on a mission. Like, it's the essence of the company, and the products have been born out of that. It wasn't, hey, we're making some products, let's figure out how to, attach the sustainability label on it. And so that's kind of where we've really focused, and we're excited about it because that's creating a lot of opportunities for for creative entrepreneurs who have new ways, new ideas about how to create products.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that's good to know, because the greenwashing, it really bothers me, and I think we started off this conversation with that. Like, people don't know where to start; they're just scared because they don't know who to trust. A marketing campaign, someone can just throw it out, and a lot of frustration for me comes from just wondering about time and the commitment that these big brands have to their shareholders, their stakeholders. So they can't necessarily when Starbucks said, "Oh, we're going to get rid of our straws, but it's going to take us all this time to do it." I'm like, why? Just throw them all out now, like burn them, whatever, and make the switch. But I'm sure they've got like tons stockpiled, and that would be this many millions of dollars in loss, and da-da-da. And it's like, yeah. So yeah, and we'll just stay focused on the positive stuff here, and I'm glad to hear that the brands that you guys are personally vetting, that's like their core mission, that's where they started from. It's not like a transitional thing. And how amazing that 680, and I'm sure that number is just going to be growing and growing, because I come across these brands all the time. Like, entrepreneurs, we're out here, we're trying to do these things, build these products, and figure it out. And even just through the pandemic, I've seen several marketplaces launch that are even, one that I was very excited about is one for creators who are looking for, where do I find the packaging for my product? Where do I find the stuff to make it better? Because that has been a challenge for mindful entrepreneurs who are trying to make a product, but because the information has just been kind of like out there, or you have to literally like develop it yourself, invent a new paper or something. So I think we're kind of starting to see a critical mass here. Yeah.
And we're going to, that's kind of our goal, is to bring some of those founder stories to the front lines. We meet other entrepreneurs and founders who are trying to figure out how to solve parts of the puzzle as well. You might have one founder who's making their dresses out of dead stock material, but hasn't solved the packaging problem when they ship it, how to reduce that carbon footprint. Chances are someone's already solved it, and we've just got to connect the dots for them. But what I've noticed with a lot of the founders is they really want to hear from other founders who are on the same path, as opposed to, consultants or, futurists. I mean, we're all excited about the future, but sometimes we do need to know what's working right now. What can you do in a high volume? How do you make that work?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm excited to get in there and start connecting with some of these people in the community. Can we go back to that question I started with before? I know we only have a few minutes left, but as you've been going along, building this, being an entrepreneur, building a startup, investing, getting funds, raising the money, what have been some of the successes, the challenges? Do you have any learnings to pass along to me?
Yeah. 2020 has been a challenging year for everybody. Political climate, pandemics, seeing what's happening in our streets, and seeing people get hurt. But those are things that, as an entrepreneur, you have to still do your job and navigate through. So, and you said something earlier, kind of as a founder, and this is what's difficult for founders and entrepreneurs is loneliness on the journey. You want to, really build your little network, build your personal board of directors or advisors, and have people to share the journey with, not keep it to yourself. It's been quite a challenging year for me, to be totally honest. And, I think on the fundraising and building the company side, there's a lot of value in finding that one thing that's going to make your company, or at least you think it will make your company. What I mean by that is you might have a product or a company that does 7 different things. But if it's a startup, you do not yet have product market fit. Be careful about things number 2 through 7. You need to find the one with the conviction and really go heavy on that. And you might be wrong on that. You might discover that it's not. But if you try to focus on 7 things at once, you're probably going to fail. It's really easy to kind of get lost in what is the priority, what is the mission here. So I think there's just a lot of beauty in really focusing. A lot of great stuff that's been written by different investors and entrepreneurs about that. I think when Instagram launched, it was just a filter app. It was something else before that, but it was the filter app that made them successful. Then they became social network. LinkedIn, when it launched, it was essentially a contacts database. Doesn't sound sexy. Right now we all see it as something much bigger than that, but that's another thing too. Don't fool yourself, and don't let investors honestly fool you into comparing yourself with a company that's 10 or 20 years old and making billions of dollars. And that is a fool's game. These companies didn't start that way. We all know what Snap is famous for, Snapchat, and we all know what it is now. Just remember, it's that one little thing that gets you going. And I continue to be a student of that, trying to learn from my peers or people who've done it before me. And of course, we're trying to, figure out that way ourselves. I think we're on the right path, and really excited for, your viewers and everyone else to try what we're building. And, the good news is we're building a community. So whatever the community wants, the community is probably going to get. So the more voices that weigh in, the better we'll be able to, the faster we can improve our, what we're building.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That was very honest and aligned with a lot of the advice that I get. And I always say, like, I'm focused in a way, but like not as focused as I probably should be, because I'm doing way too much. Like, I'm #, member of the Do Too Much Club. And
we all are.
Okay. I'm like, just doing my best. And then I see, Oprah or Jay-Z or whatever, and they're doing all these things that it took time to get there.
Yeah, you're comparing yourself to the 0.0001% superstars in our lifetimes. It's we gotta give ourselves a little bit of slack. And even like as we've been thinking about building GoodHuman, two of the core values are accessibility and openness. I'm sorry, accessibility and optimism. We really wanted to home in on this piece of it's just good human. It's not perfect human. Let's just recognize we're making incremental improvements when we can. We're human after all. So I think the same thing goes as you're building a company, being an entrepreneur, or doing anything in life. Just make a little bit of improvement. It goes a long ways.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. One thing at a time, one day at a time, for sure. I guess we probably have time for just one last question here. And I'm curious, what made you develop an app versus a mobile website? Because I just have heard apps are so cumbersome and you have to constantly update them. You've got different operating systems. It can be costly over time. But of course, there has to be some value to still building apps. So what kind of was the driver behind that?
Well, yeah, there's for sure trade-offs. It does cost more to build a good app. You can go build a $5,000 app all day long, or even a no-code app. But we're competing with Amazon and Instagram. You're not going to do that with a $5,000 app, or a progressive website. I mean, you really have to figure out what is the unique innovation in what you're doing compared to players like that. Mobile apps built natively for iOS and Android they perform better than websites. It's changing. Mobile progressive web apps are getting really impressive, really much better, but they're not quite there yet. Not for the kinds of things that we wanted to do within the app environment. The other piece is, particularly in what we're focused on, the largest collection of sustainable products from ethical brands. This idea was not a new idea. People have tried this before, and you'll find a handful of websites around the internet, hundreds of them actually, that have some version of this. They have 10 brands, or maybe they have 100 brands. But at the end of the day, all they are is a shopping cart, most of them. We didn't build a shopping cart. We're building a community. And for us, we felt like a mobile app was the place to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's very inspiring. I wish you the best of success with it. I'm really glad to have met you and have our paths cross. The way the StreamYard thing ends is when we end the stream, it just literally cuts us off. So I just want to say thank you for taking the time today. And let me know if I can ever support you. Thank you so much.
We'll for sure be in touch.
Yeah, if you want to say anything about how people can reach out to you with questions or whatnot, or close it out, follow on social.
Yeah. Find us on Instagram. It's get_goodhuman. And you can just DM me right there. We read all those messages. I read them personally. And we're building a community. And, my intention with how we build our company is we're going to recruit it from the community. We really care about working with people that are on the mission. So if you have ideas about how to contribute to GoodHuman, let's talk about that. And thank you for supporting.
Thank you so much, James, for taking the time. We just wrapped up with James Glasscock from GoodHuman. If you're just tuning in, watch the whole video, and thank you so much for watching this. Like, comment, share. This is Miriam Dorsett from Product Hunt, South Florida. Over and out. Goodbye. Bye.